This Corvette isn't just rare, it's one of only 20 ever made and can fetch over $2.65 million at auction. And under the hood, a beastly engine that was so powerful, Chevrolet had to lie about its true horsepower to keep it off the streets. This is the untouchable 1967 L88 Corvette, where rarity meets raw power. The Corvette has been around for more than 70 years, always changing and getting faster. From the original narrow C1 to the modern mid-engine Z06 that can rev up to 8,000 RPM, every version of the Corvette has brought something new, making it a true American icon. But the C2, made between 1963 and 1967, changed everything. It was the first Corvette built specifically for a V8 engine, moving away from the older six-cylinder engines. This generation was wider, lower, and had a sharp, aggressive look that earned it the nickname Shark, especially when the bumpers were removed. This was more than just a muscle car. It was a serious sports car. The C2 introduced independent rear suspension, making it fast not just in a straight line, but also around corners. Early models had a 327 cubic inch small block engine, producing a rough estimate of more than 360 horsepower. But Chevrolet kept pushing for more, eventually creating the legendary 427 cubic inch big block engine. Now, the 427 engine was already impressive, but Chevrolet took things to the next level in 1967 with the L88, a version made specifically for racing. While Chevrolet rated it at an estimated 430 horsepower, experts believe it actually produced closer to an estimated 550 to 560 horsepower. So why the low numbers? Well, partly to keep insurance costs down, since higher horsepower meant higher premiums, which could scare buyers away. But Chevrolet also wanted to make sure the L88 ended up in the hands of drivers who could handle its raw power. This wasn't a car for casual driving. It was a race car at its core. The L88 wasn't just about the engine. Everything in it was designed for performance. It needed 103-octane fuel to run at its best, a clear sign that this was no ordinary street car. With a 12.5:1 compression ratio, forged rods and pistons, hardened push rods, and a high-lift camshaft, this engine was incredibly powerful, but also tricky, making it less suitable for everyday driving. The M22 Rock Crusher transmission was built to handle the immense power of high-performance engines like the L88. What made the M22 different from other transmissions was its straight-cut gears. These gears weren't just stronger, they also created a loud, distinct whine that signaled this car was built for the track, not for casual drives around town. The rugged design of the M22 allowed it to manage the massive torque from the L88's engine, making it an essential part of what made the Corvette such a powerful car. Power from the engine went to the rear wheels through a posi-traction rear end, with 4.56 rear gears, which were perfect for drag racing. This setup helped the L88 put all of its power to the ground, allowing it to run incredibly fast quarter-mile times in the 12-second range, a speed few other cars could match back then. When Chevrolet built the L88, they focused on one thing: making it fast. Comfort was not a concern at all. To keep the car light, they took out anything that wasn't needed for performance. Air conditioning? Gone. A radio? Not included. Even the heater was left out to save weight. The L88 was as basic as it gets. But that was the point. Every bit of extra weight was removed to make the car as fast as possible. From the outside, the L88 looked a lot like other big block Corvettes from that time. But the real differences were under the hood and in the details. This car was built purely for speed, without any compromises. Chevrolet made the L88 from 1967 to 1969, but the 1967 model is the most legendary. That year was the last for the C2 generation, and only 20 L88 Corvettes were ever made. The total production across the C2 and C3 generations was around 216 L88s, making the 1967 model particularly special. Today, only about 10 of those are still known to exist, making the 1967 L88 one of the rarest and most valuable American cars ever. So why were so few made? Well, the L88 was a very specialized car, not meant for the average driver. It was expensive, costing over $6,000 when a base Corvette was about $4,000. It also demanded a lot from its owner, needing high-octane fuel and offering almost no comfort features. For most people, the L88 was just too much. But for those who knew what the L88 was capable of, it was worth every penny. This car could dominate the racetrack and still be driven on the street, even if that meant making some sacrifices. The L88 was the ultimate proof of Chevrolet's commitment to performance, and it quickly became a legend. When the C3 Corvettes came out in 1968, Chevrolet kept offering the L88 package. They made about 180 C3 L88s between 1968 and 1969, and these cars saw a lot more action on the racetrack compared to the earlier C2 models. The C3 L88s raced in big events like Le Mans and the Bonneville Salt Flats, where they showed just how powerful they were. Even though the C3 L88s were impressive, they didn't have the same legendary status as the 1967 model. The C3 generation had some changes, like the iconic L88 hood, but the engine and performance stayed pretty much the same as the C2. Despite this, C3 L88s have a strong racing history and are highly valued by collectors today. So, why does the L88 still capture the attention of car enthusiasts more than 50 years later? Well, part of the reason is its rarity. Only 216 L88 Corvettes were ever made, and just 20 of those were from 1967, making the L88 one of the rarest Corvettes. But it's not just the numbers that make it special. The L88 was built during a time when manufacturers were pushing the limits of what was possible. This car wasn't just fast, it was ahead of its time. The L88 wasn't a car you could casually drive around town. It required skill and experience to handle, and for those who could, it delivered unmatched performance. Its challenging nature only adds to its appeal. Today, the 1967 L88 Corvette is a symbol of American automotive innovation. It shows what can happen when a manufacturer focuses entirely on performance, taking risks to create something truly special. The L88 wasn't just any other car. It was Chevrolet's way of proving that the Corvette was built for more than just looks. It was built to race. In the world of collector cars, few can match the respect and admiration that the 1967 L88 Corvette commands. Over the years, the value of these cars has soared, with some selling for millions of dollars. The last time a 1967 L88 went up for auction, it sold for an incredible $2.65 million, making it one of the most valuable American cars ever sold. And the value has only been steadily climbing ever since. The C3 L88s, while not as pricey as the 1967 model, still fetch impressive amounts. Depending on their condition and history, these cars can sell for anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000. But the value of the L88 isn't just about how rare it is. It's about what the car stands for, the peak of Corvette performance, a car built with no compromises. For collectors, owning an L88 is more than just having a rare car in the garage. It's about being part of a legacy, a tradition of performance and innovation that has lasted over 50 years. The L88 isn't just a car, it's a piece of history, showing what Chevrolet could achieve when they set out to build the fastest, most powerful car possible. The 1967 L88 Corvette is a car that has truly stood the test of time. It's more than just a rare and powerful machine. It's a symbol of an era when performance was everything, and manufacturers weren't afraid to push the limits. With only 20 made, and just 10 still around today, the 1967 L88 is one of the rarest and most sought-after Corvettes in the world. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about the world's most iconic and rarest cars. Until next time, keep the passion for cars alive, and we'll see you in the next video.